Welcome back, folks, to another episode of LandO's Logic. Today we are talking on the Minnesota Rokkr rebuild, as the entire team is different. We go from Season 1 now to Season 2, and it is a totally different team, as Minnesota Rokkr basically released every single player that they had on their lineup. Silly, Asim, Goddard, Exceed, Alex, Assault, Tiny, they are all gone and are currently free agents, and in the midst of all this roster mania madness, it is, in fact, Attach, Accuracy, Major Maniac, and Priesta that are now added to the team. Now, in general, I've already talked on this roster a little bit. You can obviously check out Off the Break, my show that I do on NVTV, kind of broke down that team a little bit. But I also want to kind of talk about this roster maybe a little bit more in certain details that I didn't get an opportunity to in that one. And so I feel like there is instantly, at least from whenever I saw the roster be announced, and I know that the Rokkr are actually currently doing media right now, and it kind of inspired me to want to talk about the team more in depth because, again, the primary concern that everybody has with this team already off the start is, you have four players that basically all run the AR. You have two guys who ran the main AR last year. We're heading into 4v4. How does that exactly work? And I get that, right? I get all of the talking points on. I guess you could say I see both sides, right? I see the Minnesota Rokkr's perspective on this, and I also see the average community's, or I'll say the average fan in the community's perspective on this as well. So again, when we talk about roles for this team, which is instantly what we have to talk about when we talk about the Minnesota Rokkr, because again, that is the conversation now for this team. Like I said, you get Attach and Accuracy from the New York Subliners, Major Maniac and Priesta from the Atlanta FaZe. All four were free agents, and we'll kind of see what goes on with the New York Subliners. We see Major Maniac and Priesta essentially get replaced by Arstes coming now into 4v4 COD. So again, roles with this team. I know a lot of people are kind of under this impression of like, okay, who's running what? So to my knowledge and based off what I've heard, the Minnesota Rokkr players kind of talk on, which is not really to no surprise. Accuracy's running the main AR. Major Maniac is the flex. Now, I think that we could see something a little bit different. I've heard that Attach is going to be kind of the primary sub. Priest is pretty much running third AR, second sub. I think that, and in general, really, when you talk about the entry role, it doesn't necessarily exist or is as common in 4v4. So I would say if you were to have somebody who's going to run faster than the other, it would most likely be Priesta. So again, you could kind of go back and forth on it. We've seen Priesta run, I think it was like a grapple SOG in Black Ops 4. So he knows how to play fast, right? So this team, top to bottom, I don't think has nearly as much of a role problem as many are making them out to be, but I still think that there could be a few issues here and there. Now, I think that both AR players in terms of Major Maniac and Accuracy, granted, they played that role here in Modern Warfare. People also do not realize, though, that Major Maniac's kind of primary position has been a flex pretty much throughout his entire career. He ran it in Black Ops 4, he ran it in World War II. Ever since he's pretty much played Respawn outside of Modern Warfare, he has ran a flex. He also ran a flex, I believe at one point here in Modern Warfare, they switched roles around, didn't work, but he has, a commonality to run that role from time to time. And he also isn't a traditional main AR either, because I think for the way that the Atlanta FaZe crew worked, and we're talking mostly on Hardpoint here, and we talk about main AR and how that kind of involved things. I would say that a majority of the time, whenever he was playing, it was like he kind of avoided the hill. He was kind of playing more of an island AR, I would say, is kind of how I would describe him. And Accuracy was kind of the opposite. He was kind of a majority of the time in the hill. He kind of played that role for New York. So I think you kind of already had this natural divide between the two. I think that both of them do play a similar role in terms of prefer AR, great kind of in-game leader, known as a player that can come up clutch in the search and destroy. Like if you're kind of like looking through the files, they're kind of both in pretty much the same folder, but I think that they are very much different in a lot of other ways. So again, I'm interested to see the ARs and how they function, and the next title, Major Maniac, is a lot faster than he appears. And again, right, when you're playing 5v5 and when you're playing with Simp, Abizi, Celium, and Priesta, it's kind of hard to maneuver and to play something other than what Major Maniac did, because if somebody's going to play slow, it's going to have to be him, because you got four guys who are we talk about the Tiny Terrors, we talk about Priesta especially. I mean, those guys they have a lot of opportunity to kind of do whatever they want around the map. So if you are Major Maniac, that's kind of a natural position. And again, he didn't really play that role when we talk about prior titles either. So I think when we talk about 4v4, it's going to kind of free him up to have to play faster no matter what. And I think he's already done that. Again, accuracy stepping into a position of which he's already familiar with. And then we talk about the SMGs, right? Two guys who I am very surprised to actually see on the market. I kind of went back and forth in my head personally. I know a lot of people probably wouldn't have agreed with this, but I was kind of under the impression that it was probably 50-50 for me in terms of who gets let go from the Atlanta phase between Priesta and Cellium. I'm not surprised to see Cellium be kind of progress with the Atlanta phase, but I just have this thing with Priesta in terms of like his ability as a player, and it's something that can't be understated. I mean, really, the Minnesota Rokkr, when we talk about just one player in specific, getting someone like Priesta is incredibly valuable for your team. Now, I'm not trying to talk about roster changes already, but if there is to be a change that happens with the Minnesota Rokkr throughout the season, Priesta can fill any role, right? Because, again, going back to Black Ops 4, the guy went and played every role possible in one season. Now, again, people always talk about, I went from AR to SMG. He went from main AR to flex to fast entry SMG. He played every role possible, and he played well in every single position. Right, when he switched to the main SMG, join 100 Thieves, they go back to back, right? I mean, literally, it's unbelievable the talent that he has. And so I think him playing a fast SMG, it's not going to be uncommon. Again, we've seen him in 4v4 COD already with FaZe back in World War II, of which he's already got experience playing with someone like Attach and Accuracy, even friends since the beginning of COD history for both of them. So you have a lot of chemistry already here. Obviously, Priest and Major Maniac, Atlanta FaZe, we've kind of already went over everything. So I think for this team in general, you have a good environment. I think everyone is playing the role that they actually want to play. I will say the only thing that does concern me a little bit is the pacing of the ARs, not accuracy, Major Maniac at the flex. I'd like to see that a little bit more here in 4v4 especially. And then when we talk about the SMGs, depending on how fast this game could be, I am interested if we were to see 3 SMGs, the way that Major Maniac can play that third. And then I think too, Attach and Priesta pretty much came off very good years in terms of the way that they ended them, which was playing in a flex position. So again, I think it'll be an interesting one. And I see both perspectives, because if you are the Minnesota Rokkr, I get what they're talking on when it comes down to this team in terms of like, hey, maybe these guys haven't played these roles recently, but they can. And I think in terms of that transition, that's kind of where I'm at in terms of like, I know that they can do it, but how are they going to do it versus the top players in their own position in the world? So that's where I think things get kind of interesting. Again, I know Priesta didn't have the greatest year for the Atlanta phase. I think he was heavily kind of in the shadows of the Tiny Terrors of Cellium. Again, you had 2 guys who were the MVP candidates in Simp and Cellium. Abizi had a phenomenal kind of into the year as well. And the one time that we kind of started to see Priesta really kind of level up his game was when we saw the Atlanta phase change up positions and give Priesta kind of that flex role, of which he looked great in it. So I think really it is going to be an underrated team coming into Call of Duty Cold War. I almost said Black Ops 4 for some reason. But I think they are going to be a pretty underrated team coming into this title. I think there are a few things that need to be tweaked a little bit in terms of just kind of in-game stuff in terms of roles, but I think they are going to be a very solid roster. I'm excited to see exactly what they can do. Again, we've seen Cold War for like a few hours. Like I literally played Cold War for, I think it was like 5 minutes, and Rambo was basically behind my shoulder telling me what to do every time. It was nerve-wracking. So that's all we really know about the game. So it is hard to kind of generate any solid opinions and say, oh, this is not the meta, or this is not the lineup for this meta, because we don't know the meta. But in terms of a 3 SMG, I think the faster this game gets, I think I worry more for the Rokkr. And it kind of just depends on how 4v4 is going to work and in terms of how this game is going to progress. So I think there's a lot of questions still on the Minnesota Rokkr team, but I will say I am very impressed with the transition that the Rokkr made from last season now coming into this year. They were doubted as an org. No one really knew exactly what this team was going to be about. The only kind of COD face that we had attached to this brand was Midnight, and then obviously a Saint and Reppin kind of get brought to this team. You have some more familiar faces. So I'm just very impressed with the progress that this team has made from year 1 to year 2. You have some very, very big names on this team. This is a roster that a lot of people are going to instantly associate with and become fans of because of the big brands that guys like Attach and Priesta really have. So I think from all accounts, this is an upgraded year for Minnesota Rokkr. And again, I'm excited to see exactly what this team can provide. It's unfortunate the way that the old roster kind of rounded out, because I thought we'd see at least one player, kind of continue on with the team moving on into the next year. But I would say I'm happy with the roster that they have. I think there are actually there are a few little things that I am interested to see how it kind of forms out. But in general, I think they've got a good team, and I'm very interested to see exactly how this group of 4 works together, because I think it's going to be great. But in terms of in game, only time will tell.